like I was saying, I think my fat arm just kind of like see how that jiggle? Just kind of push the enter button. Um, but what I was saying before in part one, this is probably going to be like part one retake. So a retake. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Luwanza wakanik alawanduit alawalisit alawakaktamakilawit. Ninda showis yope kusalsit kwe. Wak. Ninda showis Latonian Jasmine Dunson. Or Latonia Dunson, just my first and my last name. Also, okay, I was saying in the first take in Arabic, and that is me, Latonian Jasmine Dunson. Oh, Hamida Yasmin Dunson, okay? Because I did learn what my first name means in Arabic finally. Hamida. So Hamida Yasmin Latonian Jasmine. Okay, my other video got cut off because my fat arm hit a button on my laptop. But, oh Dios. I'm still wearing one of my work hats, and you can see, like, I was wearing different earrings at work. And I realized when I got back to my hotel room that I was missing a pair. I had this in my ear. It was like hanging like this. I was like, wait a minute, where did the other one? So like, oh my gosh, I love wearing earrings, but you know, I didn't wear the full hijab today. I just wore the headpiece so that my neck could breathe some. Sometimes when I have my neck covered up, like it gets really tense and everything. Also, sometimes it is a safety hazard. I always gotta like tie it up or tie it back when I'm working around food and everything like that. So it's more convenient to have my hair covered and put up and put away outside of the hijab where the scarf is like hanging over my shoulders. You know, like you're supposed to have breakaways on anyway. So this is my hijab. I wear other colors, purple, red, pink, you name it. But I decided to just wear my black top, my little black one today. And then when I realized I lost the earring, I put in my heartogram earrings because if I got the heartogram necklace and then I got the shahada ring one. But yeah, this is the heartogram earrings that I had bought a long time ago. I wanted the big ones, okay, but I was like, you know what? It's probably better that I do have the small heartogram earrings because then I'm compliant when it comes to jewelry at the workplace. 'Cause they don't like you having jewelry on that's bigger than 2 inches. So this is definitely compliant, okay? And it's definitely not bigger than 2 inches. Also, let me, maybe I keep my. So I have my little. You can see my little bun back there. Maybe not. But I'm gonna have back on. So, uh, yeah, you saw if you can see that. But yeah, that's. No, of course I have my neck covered up a little bit more. You know. But yeah. So yeah, I have my heartogram decked out. And then I have my lipstick, my liquid cat suit that I got from Walmart. It's not my other brand that I usually wear. Yeah, just because you're poor doesn't mean you don't have to be put together. So I talked about my situation before that I'm unhoused and homeless, which is true. And I am in a hotel. I'm not disclosing which hotel. It's just not safe to do so. I mean, I live in Delaware. it's not that hard to find people in Delaware if you really want to find them anyway. But it's a small state, so. Also, I've been working on changelings, the wolf hybrids story. Um, I had a very rough day yesterday, um, where I was listening to "Song or Suicide" by him. The song was written and composed by Villa Hermeni Valo, or Villa Valo. Just his first name and last name, Villa Valo. But if you hardcore, you know who was born, Villa Hermeni Valo. Okay, you know his whole government and his birthday, November 22nd, 1976. But enough of that. I was listening to that yesterday, and then I need to be by water. So I was like, let me be by a body of water. It doesn't matter what kind of water it is. And I just, just cried what I needed to cry. And then, I went to Chinese because I was like, long time I not have Chinese. And, I just want something that's going to fill me up for the rest of the night. Um, but yeah, it was like so dark yesterday. And I had those moments, but let me tell you, in Islam, it is not permitted to commit suicide. Doesn't mean you can't have the thoughts. You just can't. You can't do it. It goes against La ilaha illallah. It goes against the Shahada. It goes against the testament that you believe in God, that there is no other God worthy to be worshipped except for the God. There's no other entity to worship. Um, no other creator. That is the one, the first, the last, the only, the eternal. And it's like, even though like it's like darn, I can't even take myself out because of the misery. But then it's like, you're just contemplating, and I was looking up stuff, and I'm just like, you know, but what are the permissible ways to die? It was getting dark, going down the rabbit hole. And what I mean by dark is mean like, trying to find solutions to these thoughts that I was having. And then, my prayer times was coming, and then I just prayed, and I got rid of things that I felt like was probably necessary to get rid of. I'm not saying that it was necessarily bad that I was a part of it, but I just think it was taking up my time that I could be spending doing something else. And time is all that I have, and you know, spending all that time on Muzz. I was matching with guys, and then I was unmatching. So did I find a husband? No, I was unmatching all the time. And um, you know, it's not that I have this vision of who I want to be with or how I want to be with someone. It's just more like the Quran is the policy, and we have to follow that policy, especially to the best of our abilities. When we have the ability to follow it. Okay. Now this is my work uniform, so yeah, I could probably purchase some under sleeve or something so my arms won't show. But I don't have the means for that. This hotel stays have been taking up a lot of my money, and that's a part of the added sadness because you know um, you need money to survive. That's the society that we live in now, and I can't be a hoe. Never had a whole body, you know. Never had a, never been a hoe. I could write like I was one though, but no, never been a hoe. Never had a whole body. Also, speaking of which, when I was looking at, the permissible ways to die, okay, of course, suicide was out, except for one, okay. So there's a side of Islam that people who don't like Islam always go to promote their propaganda that Islam is for terrorism and terrorists and everything like that. But that's their opinion or whatever. But this is the other side of the suicide that is permissible. And I was looking into it briefly because once I read about it, I was like, nah, I'm not that. I'm thinking, but I'm not doing. I'm miserable, but it's probably something I need to get rid of, and then I'll probably be happy again. Or if not happy, then I at least have the skills to cope better with my situation. But if I'm the type of person, like, if I want to die, like I kind of like I want to die alone. Take me out. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to take out anybody else. So that's what I was going into, the rabbit hole. So it was this part where where it is permissible to to commit suicide only under this clause. I'm not saying that you'll be considered a martyr. What I'm saying is that if you're in a situation and there are people who, ooh, they're doing evil things, they're doing bad things, and there's no peace in a certain area or in a certain land. This is where it is permissible to perform that type of suicide where you're taking everybody out with you. And that's the one where we call extremism, and that's the one where we call like terrorists. Because if you want to die, just kill yourself. Don't kill everybody else, right? But when I was reading that part, I was like, huh, yeah, I'm not. I mean, yeah, no, yeah, I'm not taking no one else with me. And I was like, woman, you're not taking it yourself. It's like, yeah, you're right. I'm just, you know, just thinking. So good thing I was just thinking because, yeah, and then it made me realize like I'm not on that spectrum, okay? But that is the only suicide that is permissible, and it's only because it's the one where you are in worship of God. So it's not like you're doing it for selfish reasons or anything like that. It's because you are, I'll put it in this term, like you're a crusader, basically. You know, when I was in college and I learned about the Crusades and all that stuff, the men at war and fighting, spiritual warfares. It's only under that context. So that's what I'm talking about. 100% if you're in a spiritual warfare or not. Okay? So in that context, suicide is not permitted. Okay? It's not permitted. So, yeah, that's what I was looking at yesterday. And then, I got out of the dark thoughts and I'm here now. Okay? I'm not as down as I was yesterday, but I was, you know, yeah. So I put on my heartogram earrings and I'm feeling I'm feeling a lot better in the way that, I can cope with my situation a lot better than just thinking of suicide as one possible answer, which it is a possible answer, but it's not, you know. You don't want to do something permanent for a situation that's temporary. I'm not going to be homeless and unhoused forever. I just need a place that's safe for me, a place that's not going to allow the outside world in, because I've been constantly followed. Um, yeah, I just that's what I need. So that's why I'm not disclosing where I'm located. On my YouTube channel. I didn't do that last time with the other hotel I was in, but you know, um, there's a certain entity that's been, you know, anyway, I'm not going to get into that entity. All I'm just going to say is that what goes around comes back around, and if you have children, um, do to them what you do to me. And if you don't want to do to your children what you're doing to me, then you know you're wrong. Do to you what you do to me. If you don't want to do to you what you're doing to me, then you know you're wrong. And fix your behavior. Fix yourself. That's all I'm gonna say. So yeah. And then um the last thing I probably just want to talk about really is just I'm gonna change things a little bit because the night is getting so close. I don't feel I feel hopefully I can get somewhere with the story because I finally started adding stuff to it. Took me a long time to have inspiration to write again, but I finally had the inspiration to add stuff to the story. Um, I have incorporated a little bit more of um, the Islamic perspective inside of my story, along with Christianity, because I have characters who are Christian, not all of them, but I do have Christian characters, and I have non-Christian characters. So I pretty much have to understand different thought processes and different perspectives in order to write this, right? Yeah, so that's what I'm doing. And